Today I'm interviewing John Stewart. John is a husband, a father, a businessman, physical trainer, physical therapist, also has more certifications and education in the field than anybody I've ever met. John survived a catastrophic cycling accident where he was hit by a car at 50 miles per hour. As if that's not enough, John went through owning gymnasiums where the lockdowns affected his business in a way that he was forced to pivot and survive that. Beyond that, John contracted the COVID-19 virus that almost ended his life. John's story is one of grit, determination, and survival. Somebody once told me we are the average of the 5 people closest to us. For me, I'm forever grateful John Stewart is one of those people. Before we get started, I'd like for you to hit us with a subscribe and a like, and also enjoy this interview, episode 11. So we are 2 o'clock, my friend, and we have you. I know I have you for an hour. And when you say an hour, I know what that means. That means you thought out your day carefully. This has been coming along for a while. We've had to make a shift.
Yes.
And here we are today. But I am so grateful to be here with you because you've overcome so much. And in the process of overcoming, you have helped me more than you'll probably ever know. So
I appreciate that.
And I think when we talk today, we'll dig into that a little bit. But I wanted to just kind of start a little different than anything I've done this far. So I didn't want to prepare questions, even though I have them written down and I've studied them before starting this. And
Sure.
the more I studied the questions, the more I thought, I don't want to go that route. I really don't want to go that route because I think just being somewhat from the heart rather than from the mind is where I want to go with our conversation today.
Yeah, no, I think that's great.
And I just thought maybe I'll just start by saying a little bit about how I see the journey up to the point where we met, what I learned about you, and then I was just going to dig in and just let you take it away because it's fascinating.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
I like it.
So here's what I remember. And remember, my life most of the time is a blur because of the speed that we all move at. We can only recall so many things, but not all the details. First thing that happened for me that was super positive was, I left a real estate company to open a real estate company, and through some type of osmosis, I run into somebody does me a super favor and connects me with your wife who has a background in accounting. Your wife jumps in, rolls up her sleeves and helps me organize my books in a way that I've never had. I mean, I've been in business for many years and I've run successful businesses and I've run failing businesses. And whether it was successful or failing, my books were never the way they are today.
She's good at that.
She's good at that. She's a whole other level at that. So I was, by luck, and through a mutual friend, a relative of your guys's, Kim put me in contact, and I'll forever be grateful to Kim for that. So she puts me in contact with Danielle. Danielle sees that I can hardly walk. And Danielle at some point says, you need to see John. And I thought, oh boy, I just got to know Danielle, and my spidey senses go right into, oh, here's somebody selling me another thing or another idea to help fix me and my ailing back. But one thing that I recognized early on about Danielle is that Danielle's sincerity and who she was as a caring person was at a whole other level, and I trusted, and I went over to see you with a back that was, I couldn't walk to the corner. I remember I couldn't walk to the corner of my house.
remember.
You remember me walking into your
Yeah.
gym, and I thought. So then I met you when you had expanded your business. I've seen your face around forever and different various publications about what you do and the gyms that you were opening, and you started expanding and you're opening gyms in different locations. And then COVID hit and the landscape of gyms and people going to gyms shifted, and then you shifted, but that was the thing that was sort of a gift to me, because now I had you one-on-one, not you running multiple gyms.
Right.
So that's kind of where I was hoping you'd pick it up, because I run into you, and what I find is that you're somebody with a knowledge base in the body mechanics, how we should work on healing, in a way where you literally got me walking again, to where I can literally start walking and moving and feeling so much better than I had in a long time. So, and now, we become really close friends. I consider you one of my best friends. I can easily say that, and I have a handful of best friends that fit in probably about 5 fingers, and you're one of them. So
I appreciate that.
So
that means a lot.
What happened when I walked in, or what did you see? And then tell me about. I also want to hear about your journey with how did you also pivot from the business that you built very successfully, and you had to pivot, and you're still rocking it, and you're still booked out a week, sometimes months in advance, with people seeing you, and that's kind of where I wanted to go.
Right. Well, when you first came, when COVID happened and there was a big shift in the whole fitness industry, where the membership became hard to sell or hard to do because people weren't wanting to be around people, and local, whether it be local authorities or local, you just couldn't keep the gym open. They made it so you had to shut down, or you could only have 10% or 20% open. It just wasn't a viable option. And at first it was 2 weeks, and then it was a month, and then it was 3 months, and then the closures were inevitable. And so having a business that counts on membership and the recurring of it all, we were forced to make a decision. And in the process of making that decision with COVID, I had to think about family, I had to think about kids, and what was going to be the right choice with that. And prior to, I'm not sure how far we want to go back.
I want you to go back. Yeah, I want you to. Yeah.
Accidents.
Yeah, I didn't want to skip on the accident.
So this was the end of 2019, and then COVID was becoming a thing, and then midway, kind of the beginning of 2020 is when COVID became this problem and shut down. And we followed all the county rules and regulations and did what we were supposed to, and opened and closed, and it was very difficult for us. And around mid-April of 2020, I was out bike riding and doing my ride on the Silverado Trail, and I was involved in a pretty severe hit and run accident. Right heading south on the trail where Oak Knoll is, I got swiped by a car about 50 miles an hour. An SUV came and hit me, and their story was they didn't see me, but some vineyard workers saw it, and they chased the vehicle down and got the license plate, and there was a bunch of commotion and chaos in the street there. The initial, long story short with that, is another bike rider came up that I knew, and we'd ridden together a few times, and so he came and said, "Oh my gosh, what happened?" And my bike's out in the middle of the road, I can barely breathe, you're in shock. A lady who lived on the corner, she kept saying her name, and let me call an ambulance. Well, it's right when COVID starts, so nobody wants to go to the hospital. You seem like you're not bleeding, nothing seems broken at the moment, you're still in shock, and then B, nobody wants to go to the hospital because there's COVID. That's pretty much like, please don't send me to the hospital. No one knew anything about it yet. And so my riding friend had gone back to his house and then came back in his truck, and then we loaded up my bike and I got in his vehicle, and then we went back to my house. And as the adrenaline starts to go down slowly but surely, every part of you starts to hurt, and it became pretty significant that I couldn't move, I could barely see anymore. And then I'm sitting at home and we're discussing, should I or shouldn't I? And the pain got so bad that I had to be taken to urgent care. you take an urgent care and you can't just walk in. You got to be checked in one at a time, and it was just that whole COVID thing right at the beginning, and everything was a little odd. So I go in, they check you in. Obviously, your blood pressure is high. I'm all scraped up and banged up. You know, I had all sorts of gear on because it was cold that day, but you know, ripped all through your gear. And face is half torn up. Your shoulder.
Now let me jump in because you had already. I know you got up to around 300 pounds of lean muscle mass. At this point, you had already lost.
Oh yeah,
given up on that journey, and then you really started doing long distance training.
Yeah, so the whole powerlifting journey that I had done, that whole concept of competing and doing the national records and the world records and bench pressing and the whole this big surgery, that ended in 2009.
Okay, so that'd been a while before.
That had been a while before, and then I had shifted and big focus on just business and setting up multiple locations of business and growing the fitness center and growing the personal training industry, and then getting further educated to go through the National Academy of Sports Medicine to become a master practitioner. And then I went through a different university, the International Sports Science Association, to get another master license. And so basically being a corrective exercise specialist and a fitness therapist, there's also 12 to 14 subspecialties underneath it as far as rehabilitation goes, functional fitness, athletics and performance, nutrition, in-home rehabilitation, senior fitness.
You can't possibly remember all your acronyms. You can't remember all you have so much education. So this is what made you so fascinating to me when I first met you, because I don't remember how long before I met you had your accident. It must have not been that long.
You came in probably
6 months to a year?
6 months to a year, because it was not quite a year, because then a year after the accident, after I had finally recovered, COVID hit me then pretty badly.
So that's where we're going to go, because when I met you, you had put yourself back together. And what I found super different about you, you know, because people might confuse that you can help somebody with bodybuilding. You can help somebody with powerlifting, but you can help somebody who needs preventative health care. And I think you also help people live a longer life by helping them stay mobile.
You know, that was a big part of why I pursued that higher learning was, you know, I did that bodybuilding, and I did that powerlifting, and I did the sports nutrition, and it was a lot of fun. But to me, most of the clientele that I'm blessed to work with seem to be, you know, 40, 50, 60, 70. And a lot of people I've had for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
And to have that knowledge of watching people age gracefully, and some maybe not so gracefully, to learn how to formulate real functional fitness and having longevity be the key. You know, I'm sure you've heard it before, but I always get reminded of it. And I even have a little sticky note on my computer, and it says, it's better to be consistently good rather than occasionally great. So instead of having the diet that fixed me in 60 days or the fitness program that I did for 6 months, it's all about how about we sustainably eat. And there's numerous ways to eat healthy. There's numerous ways that each different body type works. Maybe you like to do something that has to do with no sugar, oil, or salt. Yeah. Someone else wants to be a vegan. Somebody else wants to do Mediterranean. People like to ride, people like to swim, maybe they play golf, but finding that balance that is functionally healthy for each individual, and then learning how to tailor make a program so we can get foot, ankle, knee, hip, shoulders, neck. It's all those nagging injuries that get people to get frustrated or stop. And so finding that education and really clicking and working with people on functional longevity has been really exciting for me, and I've connected with a lot of wonderful people.
When I told you I was interviewing Dr. Goldhammer the other day, and one thing that he says, there's a way to live towards the end to where you diminish the time in life where you spend fat, sick, and almost in a bedridden state. He says we should be able to live as healthy as we can till the very end, and just go to sleep one day and not wake up the next day.
Yeah,
he really believes that.
I mean, I think that's a great thing. Yeah, why shouldn't we? I think we focus too much on, working, or everybody's focused on the almighty dollar versus instead of, how we connect with people, how we can help and serve other people. It's not always about the money part. It should be about, relationships and connection and, finding something you enjoy. And what I enjoy hopefully helps you, and maybe what we do serves someone else. And I feel like the more people that can connect with that, we're all in it together.
No, I love that. And I think that I was gonna touch on a couple of things. One of them being that when I met you, what I found fascinating was that you had just literally rebuilt yourself for another time, and then you get hit with COVID. But the way that I understand it, when COVID hit you, then I knew you pretty well, to the point where it was emotionally affecting me and my family. Everybody was really worried about you, and it was a period where we were all sort of holding hands because you came to the line. I think you came to the line, as close to the line as anybody wants to get. And the one thing that I think affected you the most was a punctured lung. Did you have one of your lungs punctured, or
in the bike
accident?
Yeah, I had a punctured lung, and when I got hit by the car, the hit and run, there was a fractured leg, a broken shoulder, a collapsed left lung, and then what turned into, we discovered later, as I started to lose some cognitive thought and whatnot, a severe traumatic brain injury. And that turned into, you'd forget names, your speech became slurred, the ability to recognize shapes or to remember an instant conversation went away. So that took a bunch of rehabilitation to finally get better from. And then, a month before, you're feeling like you've recovered from all the brain injury, maybe you're getting your lung capacity back, you're feeling strong, and then COVID comes.
I didn't know that about the brain injury. Because you seemed super clear to me. That's intense. So what I would say is, COVID comes. Danielle can't go to the hospital to see you. You have the kids at home. Everybody's worried. Everybody's concerned. The doctor, I'm assuming, are going to say that I felt like had very little bedside manner, because I think, the way I understand it, they pretty much showed you your neighbor's X-ray who had pretty much similar COVID symptoms that what you had, and they basically told you these were his symptoms, he didn't make it, you might want to call your family and make some arrangements right away.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so when COVID, that was back in the day when you start feeling sick and ill, and you're thinking hopefully it's not COVID, but there was no test you could get at the store. You either had to make an appointment or you had to wait, and I think it was 24 or 48 hours. And so, all of a sudden I come home on a Friday and I've got this fever randomly, and I'm thinking, oh great, hopefully it's not COVID, maybe it's just, pneumonia or something coming on. And so I got my COVID test. I went to the doctor or hospital. They checked for everything.
And you're not the likely candidate for COVID.
No, I don't have
lean body mass, never overweight.
No diabetes, not being unhealthy. I wasn't around. I'm not going to big groups. I don't serve big groups. It's always been, ever since a year prior, just one-on-one, and everything in my facility is all masked and gloved, and so.
You're about the most hygienic person I know.
It was pretty safe, so there wasn't really a concern. And so I remember getting that fever on a Friday. I went down on Saturday, got a test. Monday the results came back. It says irregular, you're COVID positive, stay home, isolate. So Monday, all of a sudden, I popped up to about 104.1 fever. Mm-hmm. This was also back when the county and Kaiser would call you once to twice a day. They wanted to know your symptoms, check on you, are you isolating? They would send you hand sanitizer and masks and teach you, hey, at home, isolate, sanitize this, and here's your mask, here's your gloves, protect the rest of your family. And so first day, I'm 104.1, and then you take your ibuprofens and your Tylenols, you get back down to 98.6, but 2 to 3 times a day, I'd spike 103.5 to 104.1. for 11 days straight. And I tell you, unless you've had a fever that high that many times in a row, you have no idea what that does to your psyche, what it does to your soul. I mean, I've never in my life, before or after, wanted to give up. It was like something finally took over. And to become deoxygenated for so long. You can't eat, you can't drink. And when you're 104, I mean, the shivering that you go through, what happens to your brain, your thought process, I mean, it was really intense. And you start to have this, at least for me, this disinterest in life and people. And you realize that, you know, the ones you love, your kids and your wife that are there, you know, caretaking you, well, the last thing you want is for them to get sick. This is horrible. And the isolation becomes a little more extreme, and you realize, as much as people are loving on you and helping you and dropping food off, like, it's a solo adventure. And it becomes startling and scary, and you think you're progressing a little bit, like maybe you just go through this week long, maybe it's a 10-day process, they say, and they'd call you, okay, so you're on day 8, you know, just keep doing what you're doing and it should start to progress and get a little better. But on day 11, it could be 12, something like that, you know, Danielle comes in, my wife, and she is checking on me, and I'm just like incoherent and not doing good. This is supposed to be, you know, you're turning the corner day, and shivering. I'm back up to that 104 fever. You know, you open your eyes and it's like looking at light. You just can't see what you're looking at. And she noticed that I'm starting to look really, really gray. I'm ice cold and I'm gray, almost like the color of the sweatshirt. Your hands, you felt like something was taking over, and you were willing to let it take over. There was no, it's emotional because I'm a fighter. There was just no fight left. And she's like, you know, we're going to the hospital. I'm just like, no. It was it became this, this quick argument because I was now somewhere else, incoherent, and could care less about people and stuff. And you're sick inside, you're sick in your brain, your stomach, it was just the most uncomfortable feeling that you just wanted to end. The pain was so severe. The breathing, although my oxygen wasn't super low, the breathing, every breath with your chest, the cough that you had developed, the pain beyond a migraine, there's just no way to describe it. I'm sure the people who've had COVID might have similar, but it was awful. And she just, you know, she was strong enough and gave me some, you know how she is.
Yeah, she's not going to let you give
like,
up.
We're going.
She's not going to let you do it. But where did it turn around for you? Because I knew, Susan and I knew what she was going through, and there was, you talk about conviction and commitment to a spouse, unlike anything I've ever seen. I mean, she was all in, and she wasn't going to hear anything or pick up noise. She was focused. What happened to you? When did you turn that around?
She went to go get something ready, to get the car ready, because we're off to the emergency room. She's like, I need to call the ambulance. And by that time I said, let's just go. And so I walked into the bathroom and I looked at myself and I thought, holy kid, like, this looks bad. And to get, maybe it's 30, 40 feet from my back to the garage, took 10 minutes and help. All of a sudden I'm staggering, I'm unaware, I'm just dizzy, unconscious, and it was pretty scary. You're starting to realize that, here you're this young, healthy person with no reason to have COVID this bad. There's no ailments that I've had prior, and I stagger to the car. It starts to startle you as you head to the ambulance, we're in the car, we're headed to the hospital. We get to the hospital, and it's so fast. You get out of the car, you call them ahead of time. You get 2 people dressed up and, protective gear that come out with a wheelchair. Hey, this is my husband, he's got COVID. She wheels me in, and she needs to leave because you're not allowed. And there's this sort of, bye, I love you, and you think I'll see you in an hour or 2. It's the thought, because
it's what always happens in a hospital.
And we've had conversations where she goes back and thinks, oh my gosh, the kids didn't even say bye. Because what if? We don't know. And I remember getting wheeled back there, and good service in the sense to where everybody gets to their rooms in the hospital this way, but if you have COVID, there's somebody every 25 feet dressed up. They have the whole hallways quarantined off, and there's COVID patient, wow. Special elevator, special hallway, special quarters. And so they wheeled me up, finally get to the room. 103, they give me a little bit of Tylenol, but they won't give me anything else. Nothing besides ice chips, no food, because they're thinking I'm going to an event. That's kind of what happens with the progression of COVID at the time. But I never needed to go on an event, but it was about 12 hours of just this fever and just massive amount of uncomfortable pain, and going through this process and waiting. They come, they give me a CT scan. They don't even bring you to the room. They do a CT scan through the window. The CT scan, that's what you're talking about, shows your lungs, your heart, your stomach, everything is completely covered in COVID. Like the opacities in your lungs, it looked like this cobweb of spider webs. Instead of it being, a little bit, it just kind of, everything was there. You got a 104 fever now, everything's crested. Your oxygen capacity, although you don't need a vent, it's down in the 90, 89 area. They would check your blood, your liver, I think it's your CRP levels or something. You're supposed to be at 0.5 or 0.7. 0.9 means you're ill, and 1.0 means you've got a fever. Mine was 11.9. I mean, you're just hundreds of times higher than what's survivable. So you're starting liver failure, you're starting kidney failure, and the infectious disease doctor comes in and starts telling me all this stuff, and here's your paperwork, here's what it's showing. Look at your CT scan. I've had patients who looked a lot better than you that didn't walk out of here. In fact, I remember she said this, whether it be motivating or whether it be, these physicians are probably tired of all this anyways.
Okay.
I've served 250 patients in the last 3 months, and 200 of them died. You're in worse shape than some of the ones who died. So I want you to know your chances of surviving tonight are about 2%. You're on your way down, you're tanking here fast, and you need to call your lawyer, make sure your affairs are in order, get your wife on the phone, and we'll do what we can, but I'm telling you, we don't have high hopes.
I remember that call was precisely.
I just remember thinking to myself, well, I feel terrible, but you think it's 2021. I mean, people, again, it was still so new, and I wasn't one of those people who was typical of symptoms with, I don't have COPD, I'm not 65 and older,
Right.
I wasn't obese or diabetic. It was
Right.
just shocking. And so all of a sudden, then we get all these physicians coming in, you're getting shots in your stomach, because now there's a concern of having a pulmonary embolism, a blood clot in your lung, and just dying. So every 2-3 hours, you're getting a shot of a blood thinner in your stomach. They wheel you up to your own private room. And then there's a drip that they put you on. I forget what, remdesivir, when I was out, they did that, and that made me worse because it started too late. And in the ICU, it wasn't until they started giving me, I think it's dexamethasone, one of those steroids, that you finally felt like yourself for a little bit. You could tell maybe you would turn the corner, and it required a lot of painkillers. The pain was so severe. I mean, again, indescribable how like something inside you was trying to go out. Instead of having this pressure, it's like an explosion in reverse. And it was, you couldn't go to the bathroom on your own. You get up and the pain in your bones just standing was unbearable. So you had to have something bedside, people help you do everything. You'd be starving but couldn't eat. It was a terrifying, uncomfortable. And then again, it's not like, hey, let's have my wife, or let's have Jerry and Susan come, let's have your family come. Nobody's allowed to. Nobody can hold your hand. Nobody could give you a hug. And as much as you might get text messages, it's so awful, you just don't even care.
Okay.
I mean, it's one of those only time in my life probably where, your kids, there was this significant 48-hour period where you just didn't care. You were waving the white flag. I've never had that ever. It was so intense.
So one of the things that I find interesting is how you come out of that, but as you're coming out of that, your trajectory, through my lens, your trajectory towards recovery seemed really fast. It was like there was this commitment to not mess around. I'm gonna do big things, and I'm just gonna keep focused and doing bigger and better things. And Danielle tells me probably enough to be dangerous, because I think when she feels, I think, and I feel the same about her, we feel like we connect in so many ways because we are wired similarly, where sometimes she'll say, oh, John said this to me and it made such an impact, or I'll say, Susan did this to me and it made such an impact. So we kind of help each other with that. The other day she sent me something that just really had a profound impact on me. She said, you know, Jerry, one thing that I see about us is our family is here to uplift yours and yours is there to uplift ours. And that was super profound because we're all surrounded by people who don't see the world the same way. They kind of, if you're trying to get out of a situation, they want to pull you back into it,
Right.
rather than letting you breathe and get and level up. But when she said that, it taught me a lot, and I've recently made some adjustments to some of the people that I surround myself with because of it. Because some people just are not willing to take the positive ride.
Right.
They'd rather stay in that lukewarm pool of.
It's comfortable.
It's comfortable. That pool of misery is really comfortable. But also the pool of the swimming pool of doing the hard work is hard and it's painful.
It's hard, it's painful, but it's, you know, I always remember that if you do what's easy, life is always going to be hard. But if you choose that hard right, life ends up being easier. There's always an easy or a hard choice. If you choose the hard one more often than not, life is going to be easier, more rewarding for you. I do still get up at 4 a.m. every day. I make sure that I can give myself and be my best so I can give my best to my kids, to my wife, to the people who need me. And, coming through COVID, when I was recovering, other people may have seemed like it was fast. It seemed slow for me. Yeah. When I got done, you think of it, 11 days at home, I think it was 5 or 6 days in ICU. And then when I got back, it took 30 days to get back to work. And it took 3 full more months to actually work a full 8-hour day.
Forget about that.
You were one of the people that was like, all right, let's get Jerry in here. Yeah. And I would work with 2 or 3 people. Yeah. And then I was exhausted. My office is upstairs.
I couldn't notice it, but
2 or 3 flights and you were just... And my son Jameson, I would walk from my front door to the end of the driveway and back a couple times in the afternoons, and that was it. I had to go take a nap then. The pain that's still with me from COVID is excruciating. But it's one of those things where you can make a choice to just give in and choose the easy, like I'm just going to be in pain, not going to be any better. But so many people have motivated me through life, whether it be their story of pain that they've overcome or just being down and out. And I've always loved inspiration and stories of human strength and endurance and intuition. And I'm amazed by that. So I thought, hey, if you're in a position to where you can do something that might inspire one person, what if that's the one person that it can inspire one other person that 100 people needed to see? And I just think there's always that opportunity, and you don't ever know who's watching. What if it inspires your kids? And I wanted to be strong for my kids. I wanted to be strong for my wife. I'm responsible for them, and there was no option to give up.
Yeah, I see that. I totally see that. We share in common the kids with disabilities, and things like that.
Mm-hmm. And I'm honored that I'm part of your life and get to work with your family.
Oh, that's been a game changer. Yeah, somebody called me the other day and said, hey, I'm pretty broken. I know you use John, and what do you say? I can't even remember who it was, because it's happened quite a few times in the last 6 months where people reach out to me about you, but this person said that, and I totally forgot that you're still working with my daughter. I totally it totally escaped me. And she's like, what do you think about John? Would you recommend him to your family? And I'm like, yeah, of course I recommend him to everybody. And I totally forgot that Alana's still there with you and improving, and before her back surgery, after her back surgery, and the fact that with some of Alana's disabilities, the fact that you can even have the patience to work with Alana, that's been remarkable. Because when I first referred her to you and you started working with her, I thought, man, I'm not going to be offended if John calls one day and says, this is probably not going to work, or this is not in my model to but maybe because you have Jameson and you've dealt with things like that, that muscle is super strong in you, and you've been great with Alana, and you have a way with handling that she just loves going over to see you. So
that's great. I love to hear that.
Amazing.
It's just one of those, the psychology of people, and trying your best. I mean, I've been doing this in this industry with my business since 2003, and learning how to not
it's a
make
20-year anniversary coming, huh?
Yeah.
If it hasn't happened already.
Yeah,
well,
just passed.
Wow.
And just learning how to make it not so much always about fitness or getting fit or that, making it more about stepping out and getting to know the person and getting to know what upsets them and getting to know what excites them, and with whether it be the disabled that I work with, the younger or the older, is just learning how to be a good listener and listening to people talk, because it's nice to hear stories. It's nice to learn about them before I tell them about me.
Yeah, you definitely have a gift for that. I picked up on that early on, because I remember I would just go in there and just offload, and then I thought, wow, if there's 8 or 10 people a day doing this to John, how does he care for himself? But then as I got to know you, the 4 a.m. made a lot of sense to me. It's like, wow, and that's the one thing that I'm trying to teach myself and I'm trying to pass along, is that taking care of yourself first is it, because if you don't do that, there is nothing left. That's been a thing. I mean, it's been such a thing, and
it's the only time of the day, at least in my world, where there's going to be no distractions. It's like no one else is up at 4 a.m. No one's working at 4 a.m.
Yeah. There's no texting, there's no phone, there's no...
It's just beautiful, it's peaceful, it's quiet. I'm a runner, and it's nice to go and run at that hour, because you're not worried about cars, you're not worried about... It's just a nice, peaceful, quiet. You can go out there and have your meditation, have your thought. If you've got a big day...
I wanted to go into the endurance training that you got into, because you survived a bicycle accident, very close call. You survived COVID, too close to call. I mean, that was too close. And then after that, you decided that it was time to swim in the freezing ocean. What happened there?
So the journey kind of went on to where I've always wanted to run a marathon. And so once I had recovered from COVID, I wanted my lungs back. My lungs weren't working, and going from somebody who was doing century rides and tours and riding 250 miles a week and enjoying it, to now I can't walk to the end of my driveway. It was scary and frustrating, and I was told I'd never have lung capacity again. And for someone who's involved in endurance, and this is what I do for a living, I didn't want that to be. And so I started just slowly running. I look back on my Strava and think, oh yeah, so I used to run. It would take me 15 minutes to do a mile, and then I'd have to come back. And then it went from 15 to 14 to 13 to 12 to 10. And eventually it got down and down and down, and you could be out there for longer and longer. But the pain in my foot from COVID, all my joints got inflamed from all the metatarsal pads in your foot to your knee to your hip. It just became this thing to where, it was 3 steps forward, 3 steps back, and you kept having to change it up. Nothing ever worked for more than a week. But I think it's also one of those blessings. This is what I have trained myself in my profession to do, and learning about recovery and performance and how you can alter and change what makes it better for me to help and work with other people. I've had pretty much every kind of ache, pain, injury that one can have. But slowly but surely, I worked myself up to being able to almost run a marathon. I tried it, and my first attempt, I got to 21, and I had to turn back. I just couldn't do it. Went back to the drawing board. It took another 6 months, and then I was able to successfully do it solo, an unsupported solo marathon. And I felt really good, but who I am, and I wanted more. And I've always, since I was a little boy, been intrigued with Ironman. And so I thought, this is the perfect time in life. I'm fit enough, and I've got the time space right now to where I could probably train for an Ironman. And so I contacted my sister. She lives in Santa Cruz, and so that's where the Ironman was going to be. And so I figured, might as well start practice swimming in the ocean. I had been doing the pool swims and got pretty decent at the pool, and at the time you think, okay, you can swim in the water. Water's water. Well, swimming in the ocean
Water's
is
not
not
water.
the pool. Swimming in the pool is one sport, and swimming in the ocean is a whole different animal. I mean, just the cold, the sheer volume, the life underneath, the vast expanse. You don't realize how small and insignificant you are until you're in the ocean. 56 degrees, it's cold. And the pier in Santa Cruz, you know, when you walk out there and you look back, you think it's no big deal. It's not that bad. And then you start to swim and you're looking up at the pier from the bottom, and there's seals right there, not just one or two, hundreds of them, and you don't know what lies beneath, and the water's cold. It was an experience, and my first time, that was near drowning. You get to the point where your body just goes into shock. You stop swimming, you're not breathing, and I think maybe I went into it with, I don't want to say ego, but a little too much confidence, because hey, I'd been swimming, I'd gone to Lake Berryessa a few times, I'd been in the pool. You can swim 3, 4, 5,000 meters.
Yeah.
What's a
Salt? You're buoyant.
yeah,
More buoyant than salt than in the lake.
You got a wetsuit on.
You got a
right?
wetsuit.
What's a 2,000 meter swim around the pier? That's got to be, just check mark that box. Oh my. First attempt was a failure, and I had to get carted in on my sister's paddleboard. And then the second and third attempt we didn't do the pier. We would just go out and back to buoys just to familiarize yourself with the water and the cold. And it was quite an experience. And even though I trained for it and I did the Ironman and I was able to do it successfully, the ocean never gets easier. You never check that box and think, okay, I got it. Every time you have to have respect for the ocean. The cold, the waves, the swell. I mean, it doesn't look bad until you're swimming in it and you get these 6 to 8 foot swells, and it's humbling beyond. But it also gives you this amazing energy and this super blessed appreciation for everybody in your life because of how fast it can just be over. And to know that, hey, you did it, people allowed you to do it, people gave you the time to do it, they weren't upset with you for going, they were supportive of you while you were out there, they trained with you. It wasn't just me and my sister, it wasn't just me, my sister, and my wife. There's so many people either rooting for you or helping you. It's just a really amazing experience of it all.
I was going to say that. I didn't know how much your sister got involved, but from Danielle's perspective, you couldn't find a better cheerleader, and talk about, taking it in the chin while all that's going on. I see the T-shirt.
Yeah.
The T-shirt says
the one Danielle has.
Yeah.
It says Iron Mate.
Iron Mate,
Yeah.
because man, you also deserve a trophy.
100%.
To support somebody to complete an Ironman or an Iron
There was
Woman.
a funny joke about that when I was there with my sister ahead of time getting registered. They had a whole booth set up, and they had these T-shirts that says Ironman Support Crew.
Yes.
So I remember I got my sister an Ironman Support Crew.
That's so
She's
cool.
like, oh, that's cool, and I kind of wanted one, and so I said, oh, well, here, I got you this one, and it looks like it's just a shirt that says Ironman, and so she looks at it and says, oh, thanks so much. Well, I wanted the Support Crew one. And did you read what it said for real? And she's like, oh, it's
Iron
like,
Mate.
You're my partner.
You're
in this.
Iron Mate. Yeah.
Like maybe not the support crew with the training aspect of it, but the belief in and the support. I mean, that's huge. That's huge.
It's huge. It goes back to that whole thing that keeps coming back for me. Is like we can't do anything alone. We're really that small that if we don't have people and the right people, there's very little that we can accomplish.
I was reading a book. I forget what the book was called, but there's a chapter, and I just thought it was amazing. And the chapter was, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go further, go together.
You gotta go. Yeah, that's great. Great quote.
I'm like, oh man, that's so good.
That's a good one. So what's next for you, man? You just completed a marathon.
Just completed a marathon.
Happy to be there.
Yeah, that was great. Needed the support at the end.
Talk about worst. And I'm not bringing it up for any reason other than it was cold, it was hail, it was brutal. Danielle completed a half as a busy mom and also with a job and all these responsibilities. You with a business and all these responsibilities completed the full marathon in the worst conditions I've seen in Napa Valley ever.
We've got snow up on the mountains.
Snow on the mountain in Napa Valley.
You know, it was a really hard race, but I gotta say that the training that led up to it was such a bonding experience because my wife had never done this before. She had never prepared and gone through a whole regimen of training. So it was really fun for me to see her grow mentally, grow physically, grow spiritually, see her go from not being able to do much, not believing in herself much, not enjoying it, to this is kind of fun, to man, it was something that we looked forward to. Even though on a Saturday, it might take up your whole Saturday. Well, I'd go out early, come back, get her all set up. She'd go out, come back. We'd have a whole breakfast. And we'd talk about all our stats and what we did. And it was just a unique way to healthily do something together and progress to this goal that was not just an easy check off the box. It's hard. It was a huge accomplishment. And wasn't sure, but then afterwards, seeing how much fun she had.
She had so much fun, man.
Which was great for me to see that, you know, we're definitely going to plan to do it again next year.
Yeah.
And then, depending on, we got a little bit of recovery left here, I'd like to see us attempt to do something August, September of this year. But the marathon is a great distance. The half marathon's a great distance. For me, assuming that my physical body can do it, I want to put together a crew of people because the bonding experience of doing a 100-mile race is extraordinary. What it puts your body through, what it puts your mind through, but your team. You can have 2 to 5 pacers or 10 pacers that pace you for 10 miles each, while the rest of the crew, you know, gets ready at different rest stops. Make sure there's food and nutrition or motivation or change, but it's this camaraderie of a group that all together does this amazing event.
Oh, I want to volunteer for that.
Always,
you can count on me.
I've always wanted, yeah.
I'm sure Susan.
You're on the team. Yes.
Okay, yeah, I'd be on that team in a heartbeat.
And so, you know, it's probably 2 years out minimum, just preparation and logistics and making sure that people can do it and want us to do it and we're motivated to do it. But, you know, people think it's crazy and why would you do stuff like that? But just the endurance of your mind, of your spirit, of your body, and the motivational part, the inspirational part, the part that quiets your mind. I'm so drawn to that, and I think when other people get involved in all or some, you know, it brings out the best in everybody. It's so fascinating to me.
The other day somebody said to me that, and I don't know whose quote this is, I'm sure it's some great philosopher or something, but we are the average of the 5 people closest to us.
We've talked about that a lot through our sessions. You know, it's like you got mental real estate. It's expensive, and if you're hanging out with people that aren't, you know, drawing the best out of you or pushing you in a good way, I mean, and as we get older and as we have business and family, you know, your time is less. So when you're spending time, hopefully you're spending time with people who are making a difference in a positive way.
You know, I think you get this a lot because you have a lot of people like myself who reach out to you during and after the process to say thanks and man, this has changed everything, and you've heard that a lot. For me, it's just kind of starting now where some of the things that I'm doing are having an effect on other people. So I just, one of Susan's clients and friends who lost her husband early, she just reached out to me and said, oh my God, I just adopted the way that you're eating. My blood pressure my high blood pressure just dropped within 3-4 days. I was back at where I was in high school. And I thought, wow, that must be what John feels like when I thought, and then today, you know, the CEO of Side, multi-billion-dollar company, sends me a text this morning, says, what are you doing? I need it.
That's so good.
And I thought, and then I said, just call me. And the guy calls me and we just talked, and he says, I'm just going to start. He says, I'm going to start taking in all the information that you have. I'm going to listen to it. I'm just going to start. He says, I lost 80 pounds 2 years ago when you saw me, Jerry. I'm 60 pounds up out of the 80. I'm going the wrong way. And I just, again, the more I get that, it's almost like stoking a fire, right?
Yeah.
The more they're stoking that flame, and that's what helps you level up, right? That's what makes you commit to it. So now I can see why you do it and why it's all about the people. The rest of anything, if it's anything, it happens. And if it doesn't, then you're not doing it right, or you're not impacting enough people. That's the bottom line.
I mean, that's a great explanation. That what you do and it inadvertently just benefits so many other people. It's joyful to hear when people, hey, you changed my life. You say, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be alive. Or I've had people that couldn't walk and were in wheelchairs, and then they went and were able to start hiking and walking and running, and then all of a sudden they bring me their parents who are in their 90s and bedridden, and they start moving and walking, and just the gratefulness that people have. It's very touching, and you live for those moments where it's not, you may not be changing the world, but to change a life.
It's changing the world. That's as good as, that's it. That's part of the world, right? And if you can do that, then you're doing something.
And it's great.
We tend to want to overcomplicate it. I think we want to just kind of make it this dynamic thing that all gives you everything you need all at once, and it just doesn't. It doesn't work that way.
We always talk. More isn't more.
More isn't more. We've said that.
It's good to keep it simple.
Yeah.
Work hard, be honest, and live a simple life. It's happy.
Yeah. It's not that complicated. We just have a way with.
We do that to ourselves.
Complicating.
And we gotta reel it back in. Yeah.
Absolutely. So what's next, man? What's the next thing?
Well, just nothing's on the actual calendar, but hopefully end of the year we'll do another husband-wife half or full marathon together, and then just developing into the Napa Valley next year, putting together that team for the 100-miler, and just I feel like, again, in your industry, what you do, and the same with my industry, I feel after you've been in it for a long time and you find some joy and some love, I kind of feel that there's eventually an obligation to help the next generation enjoy that passion as well. And so, finding, whether it be someone to come in with me or under me, and, actually pushing the energy out there to, start seeing more young people come in and learn how to help beyond just what regular exercise would be, learning the psychology of it, learning about recovery, learning about functional fitness, learning how to work with youth as well as seniors, the obese versus, the injured, and just finding that balance and being able to enjoy all those different clients and patients together. Yeah. And that's kind of that next step of developing business and finding those young people to inspire.
I love that. So I was almost going to forget this, but if somebody out there is in pain, back pain from injury, from anything, dealing with weight issues, or just wanting to rebuild themselves, because that's what you helped me do, is put myself back together. You actually kept me out of back surgery. You know how close I got to doing that? I was interviewing all the doctors.
I remember.
So I was literally going in for back surgery. You asked me to give you a little bit of time. Yeah. I still kind of remember that. It just came to me right now. You said, just give me a little bit of time. And I felt that it was worthwhile, and I felt the sincerity, and I gave you the time, which saved me from scar tissue and everything I've heard can go wrong with cutting into your back. I don't need back surgery. And every surgeon told me I did. And my pain has gone from, on a scale of 1 to 10, from a 10 to 12, to 1.5 on a bad day, to 0 most of the time.
Most people are probably in.
I can live with that.
Pain. Yeah,
I can live with that. It's so. How do people? I know how to get a hold of you because I have all the bat lines. But if you don't have a bat line, how would somebody get a hold of you these days?
If you go to the website, the customhealth-fitness.com, you can email through there. Anybody who. If you have people that that want to refer, I always tell people just my cell phone is totally fine. Okay. Text and email is the best. But the website's out there, the customhealth-fitness.com.
Yeah. You do check your emails. I know that about you. Yeah, you don't miss any.
I'm on it, and even sometimes there's seasons where you can fit somebody in next week, and sometimes it's not till the summertime or not till the fall, because there's just a demand, and like everything, if I can help people, I want to help them. And
That's what I was going to
say. That balance in life is tough, but I do tell people,
if you're in major pain, if you're really in trouble right now,
Yeah, we can-
at least make the connection.
yeah, we will make a connection.
Yeah.
We'll set up a meeting, and if, as an example, here we are at the end of March. If I can't fit you until August, I want to at least set up a time. Let's talk, whether it be Zoom or in person. Tell me what's going on. Let's make sure it's a good relationship. Make sure you like the space.
Yeah.
And let's see if we can just put some stuff, and then I'll put you on a list to say, hey, I actually had a person out of town for 2 or 3 weeks, and I can fill you in if that works for you. And just kind of try to have an ebb and flow with the schedule that way.
Yeah, you're really good at managing. I call you a time management ninja. So it's one of your superpowers.
When every hour of your life is dictated by appointments, and it has been since 2003, it just becomes second nature.
It is, and I've learned from you. So it's something that that you sort of passed along, because through osmosis and Danielle, I've become better at it because of you, just literally watching you. So,
I love it.
Well, dude, I love you. You're one of my best friends. I have to
appreciate
say.
it, man. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to chat with you a little bit, and I hope we can.
I'm the support team.
Yeah,
I'm
I like
definitely
the support
in. Susan's
crew.
in.
We'll
I'm
start
going to
talking
commit
about it.
Susan because I'm sure she'll do it.
Yeah.
I know Danielle will be there. We'll.
We'll get the people that want to do the run part, the
Absolutely.
food part, the camp
Absolutely.
setup, the gear
Absolutely.
checking. It'll be fun, and I hope we can do more of this stuff and kind of get whether it be episodes 1, 2, or different topics.
I love to go into more topics with you because I know the well is deep, so I'd love to go into specifics and unpack stuff.
Yeah, I'm into it.
That's what young people say.
Yeah.
Thanks, pal.
You got it, man.
Bye.
Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Talk soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.